You know that moment right before a big argument, when you can feel it coming, like a storm building just under the surface, and your chest gets tight, and your mind starts racing, and you already know this is going to end badly, but you feel completely powerless to stop it. That feeling, that helpless, dreading, awful feeling, is something most people carry around with them every single day, and nobody talks about it. Nobody teaches you what to actually do in those moments. Here is what I know to be true. The people who struggle most with conflict are not bad people. They are not weak people. They are not people who lack intelligence or emotional depth. They are actually often the most sensitive, the most caring, the most deeply feeling people in the room. And that sensitivity, as beautiful as it is, can make conflict feel absolutely devastating. So if you have ever walked away from an argument with someone you love and felt this sick, hollow feeling in your stomach, if you have ever replayed a fight in your head for days afterward wondering what you should have said differently, if you've ever just gone completely silent because you were so afraid of saying the wrong thing and making everything worse, this is for me speaking directly to you right now. Because here is the truth and most people never figure out. Conflict does not have to destroy your relationships. In fact, handled the right way, conflict can actually make your relationships stronger than they were before the argument ever happened. And I am going to show you exactly how. But first, I want you to understand something important. The cost of not learning this is enormous. And I do not mean that in some abstract, distant way. I mean it in the most personal, tangible, gut-wrenching way possible. Think about the relationships in your life right now that feel strained. Think about the conversations you have been avoiding. Think about the resentment that has been quietly building, brick by brick, for months or maybe even years. Every unresolved conflict is like a small hole in a boat. One or two holes maybe you can manage. But over time, those holes multiply. And suddenly you are looking at a relationship that is slowly sinking, and you cannot figure out when it all went wrong. Research consistently shows that unresolved conflict is one of the leading causes of relationship breakdown, not just in romantic partnerships but in friendships, in families, in workplaces. And the most heartbreaking part is that most of those breakdowns were completely preventable with the right skills. Now before we go deeper into those skills, I want to mention something briefly. We have programs linked in the video description below, and they go far beyond what I can cover here. If you are someone who knows you have been struggling with this for a while and you are tired of just getting by, those programs exist for people who are ready to actually transform the way they navigate relationships. Do not wait until things get worse to look into them. Most people who finally check them out say they wish they had found them sooner. Now, back to what I was saying, because this is where it gets really important. The number one reason conflicts spiral out of control is not what most people think. It is not because one person is wrong and one person is right. It is not because someone said something mean. It is because of something called emotional flooding. When conflict starts, your nervous system goes into threat response, your heart rate spikes, your thinking brain literally goes partially offline. And in that state, you are no longer having a conversation. You are having a biological emergency. And you cannot solve a relationship problem from inside a biological emergency. Impossible. So step one, and this is not optional, is learning to recognize when you are flooded. Your body will tell you. Your jaw gets tight. Your breathing gets shallow. Your thoughts start coming too fast or stop coming altogether. The moment you notice those signs, you have one job. You need to slow everything down. Here's a technique that some of the world's leading relationship researchers have found to be profoundly effective. When you feel flooded, you simply say out loud, "I need a few minutes before we continue this conversation." Not because you are running away. Not because you do not care, but because you literally cannot think clearly enough to be the person this conversation needs you to be. And when you take that space, you come back. You always come back. That commitment to coming back changes everything. Now here is where most people get it completely wrong when they do come back. They come back still focused entirely on winning, still rehearsing their arguments, still thinking about all the ways the other person was unfair or wrong or hurtful. And so the conversation starts right back up at the same temperature it left off, and nothing changes. The shift that actually changes everything is moving from a position of wanting to win to a position of wanting to understand. And I know that sounds almost too simple. But hear me out, because this is not just motivational language. This is backed by decades of research on what actually makes or breaks relationships. The couples, the friends, the colleagues who consistently navigate conflict well, all share one critical trait. They approach disagreements with what researchers call curiosity instead of contempt. They genuinely want to know why the other person feels the way they do, even when it is uncomfortable, even when they disagree. Pattern interrupt. Stop for 1 second and ask yourself honestly, in your last big conflict, how much of the time were you actually curious about the other person's perspective versus building your defense? Be honest. Most people, if they are really honest, were doing about 95% defending and maybe 5% listening. And that ratio is the source of most conflict damage. So here is what it looks like to actually flip that. Instead of starting your sentences with "you always" or "you never" or "you made me feel," which immediately puts the other person into their own defensive spiral, you start with something completely different. You start with genuine questions. What did that mean to you? Help me understand where that came from. When that happened, what were you feeling? These questions are not weakness, they are the most powerful tools you have in any conflict. Because when someone feels truly heard, their nervous system starts to calm down, and when their nervous system calms down, they can actually hear you. And this is the part that most people never believe until they experience it. When the other person feels genuinely heard, they almost always become softer, more open, more willing to also hear your side. The very act of listening deeply creates the conditions for being deeply listened to. That is not philosophy, that is human psychology. Now let's talk about what happens after you have created that safety, that feeling of being heard, because this is where you get to actually express your own needs clearly without it becoming an attack. The framework is devastatingly simple. You share what specifically happened, what you felt when it happened, and what you need going forward. No accusations, no character assassinations, no bringing up every past grievance. Just those 3 clean things. And when you do this, you give the other person something they can actually respond to, something specific enough to work with. Here is something powerful that almost nobody considers. The relationships in your life that you are investing in right now are either going to be stronger 5 years from now, or they are going to be significantly more damaged. There is no standing still. Conflict is unavoidable. What you do with it is entirely within your power to change. People who learn these skills report not just better relationships, but genuinely lower stress, better sleep, more confidence, and a sense of emotional freedom they had not felt in years. The numbers are striking. Studies show people who handle conflict constructively report up to 60% higher relationship satisfaction and significantly lower rates of anxiety and depression. The only people this will not work for are those who are not ready to let go of being right long enough to actually reconnect. And if you are watching this, something tells me that is not you. The programs we have linked in the description below exist for a reason. They go deep into everything we touched on today and far beyond, with real tools, real frameworks, real shifts. People who have gone through them describe it as the thing they wish someone had taught them decades earlier. If you feel even the smallest pull toward checking them out, trust that pull. The version of your relationships that is possible on the other side of this learning is worth every single step it takes to get there. Do not let another conflict go by without giving yourself the tools to handle it differently. Everything you want in your relationships is waiting for you on the other side of this.